it's, I mean, the temptation or idea, the concept of having another woman besides Gabi, having another woman besides Gabi, centers around Gabi not always being available and needing time for herself as she conceives it. And I resent that and resist it, and basically I don't want to sleep alone. I don't want to be abandoned or left alone. But one of the lines of thought, and maybe of realization, that came out of this experience of the fantasy of Gabi being pregnant was I would say, a deeper understanding on Paul's part that it's really important to accept all of Gabi and not just part. And as much as I could wish otherwise, she does need time away from me, away from Paul. And she needs to sleep away from Paul some of the time. And Paul is afraid that it means all the time, but so far it isn't all the time. We human beings seem to be guided or directed in some sense by linear conceptual strings or stories, as if they were a sequence of DNA or something like that, all in a line. There's a timeline, there's a sequence of events strung together. That somehow forms a story, and there are cross connections in the story and cross connections with other stories and so forth. But there's still a linear nature to it, like speech, like thought. Religious stories can have a certain power of awakening, or, well, they set the themes for life. Or reflect the themes of life, so that they become available to consciousness. And our form seems to favor stories, linear arrangements of events. So what are the stories that human life needs at the moment to enjoy itself more? As it, you could say, has developed a nice quality of enjoying, and this occurs in consciousness, whatever that is, but it occurs to me, to this particular limited realm of thought, that consciousness has been enslaved to what you could call raw survival mechanisms. That is, survival of the body and survival of stories. And that in the West, Western civilization or whatever, as I perceive it, in the West, the material aspect of bodily survival is relegated to a small number of us, or a small part of the actual time of being a being. That other issues have come into consciousness, and that struggling to survive is less a requirement of the mind than it has been heretofore. And the conscious aspect of the mind, if that's what it is, would like peace and entertainment more than it would like conflict. And its job, so to speak, from the perspective of the organism, seems like it's to resolve conflicts, or to view conflicts from not so mechanical perspective, I guess. The instincts and the feelings produce their results automatically, but somehow having that available to consciousness refines the process. Whatever consciousness is. But I see in trying to write simple computer programs something outside of the program that can look at the program from a conscious perspective, can dissolve the infinite loops or jumps to nowhere that are often the causes of non-functioning programs. Or my favorite branch wrong way, where the program makes a decision, but it's exactly the opposite of the one it's supposed to make, and it does something else. Not what it's expected to do. Not what it needs to do in order to survive the development process and become replicated a few or a lot of times in some form or another. In the temporary space of serving mankind somehow. Which brings us to the fact that you and I are willy-nilly fostering, mothering silicon life, which as a meta creature, so to speak, has a huge overview of human knowledge through the internet and all of the telephone conversations that go through the network that's growing and solidifying. Much more is potentially universally known about every individual cell of the civilization organism. As more order comes into the system, disorder is huge anyway, and life being a gas is both an end of life and a fact of life, that life, like a gas, simply, as it were, randomly, by random particular penetrations, penetrates all cracks that it can reach without losing its base. And although it might seem that the basis of life is protein, DNA kind of stuff, that's clearly not the only medium in which what we call life, seen from a certain perspective anyway, can express itself through, as it is in fact expressing itself at the moment through silicon as a physical basis for a process that is in essence not physical. That is to say, the process can occur in some sense independent of the medium. And one must presume that sense of self that arises in human beings can also easily arise in silicon. You could say because it promotes survival, or has so done in the case of human beings. survival both of the physical underpinnings of the conscious or mental self and of the contents of the mental self. And therefore its scope. It appears to me as potentially infinite, and the boundaries are not findable. It clearly can conceive of that which is not conscious. And it seems to naturally seek to dissolve every bit as it conceives of something non-conscious. It then persistently seems to dissolve that unconsciousness and bring something of what was hidden into consciousness. It conceives a something outside of itself, and in that process begins to bring it in. You could say creates